It's Between Two Wheels podcast, Tyler Yonke, stage 16, episode 373. We're going to recap, because I've been on a little bit of a hiatus. You can see maybe from the tan here. Let's turn the light on. Stage 16 was good, but we've got to recap 12, 13, 14, 15. Then we'll talk about it today. You see the picture there. Wout's out. Do all three jerseys change? He holds the green, he holds the polka dot. Ben O'Connor owns the red. Are we going to see a swap of all those jerseys out today? Spoiler, Wout abandoned the race in a crash. There we go. But the white jersey, maybe that'll stay. All coming up. We are here live with you. Victor says thanks for the notifications. Nice to see him. Yes, so come on in, join us, and we'll do a quick recap. I mean, it's yesterday we had Labor Day here in the U.S., and so did some work. Look at this nice blister on my hand. It looks worse than it probably is. However, that's from work, people. It's from being outside, working, shovel. I was redoing the chicken coop stuff, whatnot. However, we're going to have to go and do a little bit. Spoiler, I'm going to put this right up on the screen here. Spoiler alert, Wout crashed out today. I'll give you a breakdown of what happened with him. Not so good. Was it the right thing for should he have even been up the road? That's maybe something to talk about. But, you know, when you look at the overall and how Sepp is doing, maybe it's not such a bad deal. I think the big goal for Sepp at this point is just, hey, let's get him in the top 10. And then we will go from there. But let's take a look back at stage 12. We're going to, here's the profile. I'll just see if I can remember these races at all. It had this climb up to the Manzaneda. The final climb, 15.9 kilometers at 4.7%. It wasn't, over grueling, but there was a breakaway up the road. There was this guy named Pablo Castrillo for Kern Pharma. Max Poole was up there. So was Marc Soler. A few other ones, Harold Tejada, Van Sevenot, Jonathan Narvaez, Mario Schmid. And at the end, there came a Schmid, Soler, Poole, and Castrillo were all up there. And at some point, Castrillo took off. He's like, you're like, who? And that's what everyone was saying. But in the end, he ends up getting a win, 8 seconds over Poole. And then Marc Soler, 16 seconds back. Mario Schmid, 23 seconds. Narvaez and the rest coming in. And then the main group. Skilmos brings in the main group, 6:29 back. No change in the general classification at that point on stage 12. That was the 29th of August. We're, the 3rd of September already, so we've been moving on. But here was the GC at that point. You can see time one lost today. No one in the main side there, down to Eddie Dunbar. And then there was some Harold Todd had moved up, Jack Haig moving down. But that was stage 12. We had stage 13. By the way, came about because I went up to Lake Tahoe with my buddies, and we did some riding and stuff this weekend. And I was trying to leave on Friday, and so just stuff came down. It was busy on Thursday. I was just busy. So I didn't get a chance to do this, and I'm super sorry about that. However, the next day we did, once again, we're getting these breakaways, which is, it's allowing someone like Wout van Aert to be moving into the polka dot jersey. He's already in the green jersey, but we're allowing him to, because these breaks are getting up the road, you can't control it, and the big teams are like, we're not going to control it. And so, once again, another big break gets up the road. I think Wout's in that one as well, and you've got this steep climb up to Puerto de Ancares at the finish here, 7.5 kilometers at 9%. Mike Woods is in that race, in that breakaway, and at that point you're like, well, it could be pretty good for him. He's had good chances before. There's all these other climbs going into it. And in the end, yes, we'll just jump right to the chase, which is Mike Woods jumps away, pretty steep climb coming up to the finish. Mario Schmid, once again, in the national championship jersey for Switzerland. He's up there, cannot close that down. 45 seconds to Mike Woods, who takes that over Marc Soler. And Marc Soler, 1:11 back. Marc Soler doing all this, getting up the road. Like UAE, they're kind of in where they're doing a little bit different tactics, but they're very much in this race, much like Visma, which is Sepp isn't having the race he needs. Almeida dropped out with COVID. Yates and Sivakov are doing their best. They're getting up the road. They're taking off some chunks of time, moving up on GC. We saw that on stage. The Granada stage was at stage 8 or 9 with Yates. And with that, there's just a different thing. They're going up the road. They're trying to get in the breaks. They're trying to do what they can. Jay Vine going up the road. Del Toro as an example. And so they're doing what they can with Soler because the overall GC is really not, when you get these teams that win the Giro, the Tour, and they win the Vuelta, and they win everything like that, at some point, they're not super concerned with just getting a guy in the top 10. They're just going to come out here and let our guys win as much as they possibly can, jerseys and all. After the day, there was a little bit of a GC challenge actually on that one. McNulty was up there. That's McNulty and Jay Viner in the break on this day with Soler, and they go over the second to last climb. They're coming down the hill, and McNulty slides out under the barrier and takes out Jay Vine, and he looks pretty bad. McNulty does. They get back on the bike. They do finish 8 or some minutes down, but they're not up there to be able to contest the finish for against Mike Woods. Soler just keeps going up the road, and he does do that, tries to contest it. Back in the main group, though, Roglic takes off here. He gets a little bit of time over Landa, Skilmos. Enric Mas has a little bit worse of a day. Sepp Kuss comes in here, 12:01 back, losing just about a minute or so to Roglic. Not as good a day, but he's trying to come into it. Felix Gall has a little better day than Ben O'Connor, drops him at the end. There's a little bit of a dynamic issue here, who's working for whom. And let me see, Gall, 12:01, Ben O'Connor, 12:49, so loses, 49 seconds there to Gall on that stage. That was stage 13. We're going to stage 14. This one was a bit unique because you can see this profile here had this Cat 3 and then it had a Cat 1, 22.8 kilometers at 4.5%. But if you look at this, it's just a straight ramp. And with that in mind, Visma's like, we're leading this. We're going to bring Wout over the top and he's going to go for the stage win. It comes down to a sprint with Caden Groves, who still happened to be in that group. Caden Groves, they are both neck and neck. Groves hits out. Wout has to take around the lead out kind of on the right-hand side. Gets around him, comes up even, actually comes up, takes his wheel above, in front of Caden Groves just for a microsecond. Caden Groves kicks again, is able to get the win over him, and so we don't really have any big shakeups in there. Is anybody dropping out on that day? Not DNS, Ruben Fernandez, but no changes on the main GC. Going into stage 15, which was going to be Sunday stage, big day. This has a sprint finish. I mean, a sprint finish, definitely not a sprint finish. A climb up the last bit, the Cutio Negru, and you can see here it's okay. It gets a little bit more steep. It mellows out. It gets steeper again. It gets really pitchy steep here about halfway up this climb. It's 18.9 kilometers at 7.1%. It has some more mellow stuff, but the last 3 kilometers are really, really steep, and you hit spots of 24%. You get guys up in the break. Castrillo, he's up in the break again. Once again, we got Sivakov. He is pulling, trying to do what he can. He gets up in this break. He gets Vlasov with him. Castrillo's with him. And there's a few others, and they just start Jay Vine doing, once again, a bunch of pulling, shredding everybody out. Next thing you know, it's just Sivakov, Vlasov, and there was Stefan Kung, there was a few others. Pashir, I think, was up there. There was an incident with the team car with Kung at the sprint point, trying to take time away, bonus seconds away. Didn't work out. That, I don't know if you even got penalized for that, but what happened? It was the sprint. They have the team car. Jay Vine goes over to get a bottle. Kung tries to sprint up there. He comes in between them. He gets all upset. It's what it is. But to going into this last climb, it's pretty brutal, and everyone shreds out except for Castrillo, Vlasov, and Vlasov, and they're just sitting on the wheel of Sivakov. Sivakov's just doing all the work. He said he never asked them to pull through. Why not have Vlasov up there? There's some weird team tactics of even having Vlasov up the road when you've got Bora, his team, Red Bull Bora behind, with Roglic, who can use some help. Sivakov, fine, but they leave Castrillo up there, and he is slaying. He's swaying back and forth, doing everything he can. They come to the last 3K, the right-hand pitch. Castrillo, bam, hits it super hard. And I'm watching this with my buddies, and I'm just like, he's doing this for the camera. This is all camera work because he's going to get caught. And he has like 5-10 seconds and a little bit more. and it's super cloudy and you can't see. And next thing you know, he keeps rocking and rolling and going and no one's coming up to him. Halfway up that pitch though, you start to see Vlasov make a move. About a kilometer or so to go, Vlasov catches him and he starts to come around, and then Castrillo kicks and then doesn't get far because it's like 20% gradient. And then Vlasov comes up again, Castrillo kicks again, and he opens a gap. And next thing you know, he wins the stage. Unbelievable. Kern Pharma, this low-end team in Spain, this boy's going somewhere. Rumor has it he's going to Ineos. We don't know. And I hope he hadn't signed yet because his value just went sky high. Now, let's reverse back here because there was a gap back to the main field and the GC riders coming over into that final climb. Primož Roglič pulls over, it looks like for a nature break, gets a car change, or the cars are up there. He's getting a bike change, and word comes over on the radio, Robbie McEwen, and he's like, hey, they planned this. He's riding a 1x just because it's so steep. Remember, he did that in the 2023 Giro, did a bike change, rode a 1x up the final climb of the time trial. Chain comes off. We have an incident there. Now, with the bike change, he comes over on the side of the road. Team car and team car 2, one is over there getting in the bike, and then the next one's passing over, and he immediately comes back and gets up there. Now, Denny Martinez had been up in the break, had been spit out, and he was up there. He dropped back to help him. But immediately, Roglič doesn't even use his riders. He gets on the team car, and he just starts going up the road. And the riders are trying to get on there. Now, I understand there's a draft issue. If you're like second behind someone and you're drafting off the team car, it could be actually really difficult to hold the wheel because the first person is getting such a draft that second person may not be really getting much off of you as a lead rider. But he's doing this. And, my first thought, I even said so at the time, was, it was really interesting how they had the team cars all coordinated, which is one car pulls over, changes the bike, and as that's happening, the other team car's coming by, and boom, he's getting right in there. But the fields had been decimated enough. There was enough guys up the road where team cars were scattered. It wasn't a big barrage of team cars in there for him to just go up the road. And he's got this 1x trying to get up to that. So there's a lot of work for Roglič. He's on the wheel of this car for maybe a minute. And in the end, that comes back to bite him. And we'll talk about that in here. Now, the race starts. Things start blowing up. It's somewhat together, top 8 or so. People are having trouble. They get up until this final right-hand curve. Lipowitz is there. He puts on the turbo, drops everybody, and then Roglič is ready to go. But you don't even know if he's going to catch Castrillo, who's been up there in the break with Vlasov and Sivakov, because it's so hard to see with all the bad weather. Roglič looks like he's doing great. Next thing you know, Moss is coming up to him. Then Moss is going through him. Sepp Kuss is having a bad time. Then he's coming up. Ben O'Connor is struggling. During this stage, Felix Gall had been dropped. He had a horrible day. He loses 30 minutes. In the end, Roglič gets caught by Moss. Moss goes past him. And he actually thought that he had lost time to Ben O'Connor, but he had put time on Ben O'Connor. It was super steep. And let's get to the results of this stage because it was a good one to watch. Castrillo, Vlasov, Sivakov, Enric Mas, Primož Roglič, they come in together, right together actually. So Roglič had caught his wheel. Skilmos had a really good ride at the finish there, 109. Carapaz, 113. Sepp Kuss doing much better at 122. Landa loses a few seconds there, 127. Gadu, and it's just spread out. Everyone's getting separate times. 142 to Ben O'Connor. Lipowitz at 146. Dunbar et al. So when you came to the GC for time one lost, you moved up here. But Roglič got a 20-second time deduction, penalty for drafting off of the car. Totally appropriate. Now, they kind of turn their eyes to the drafting off the cars. Not in excess. If it's in excess, they'll do something about it, the UCI, the jury. But when you're doing it to the point that you didn't have a mechanical, you chose to change the bike, that seems to be where they just were like, we're not doing this. Now, they could have done a few other things. They could have put a barrage, which not let the team cars go up and make them chase. That's really what should have happened. Changing this bike on this time period, it was ridiculous. Some of the riding that you saw, also T-Rex, the Soudal Quick-Step team, doing a lot of riding. I'm like, why are you riding for Roglič? You're doing a lot of work for his team. Make his team work, so he's isolated. And then if that would have been the case, and then he does his bike change and he doesn't have teams, maybe it's a much worse situation. And then you, Enric Mas, everybody else can actually improve. But it's what it is. I was hoping for a better day for Sepp Kuss. He had done fairly well, and that leads us into today's stage. Today's stage, let's see if we actually have, they had a break up the road. I'm already skipping to who was in the break here. You had Riccatello, Marco Frigo, Marc Soler, Filippo Zana, Max Poole, Jay Vine. Those guys were drilling it. Wout was in the break with him. And at one point, Wout was taking off trying to break away from the breakaway. He gets caught or sits up. He takes points over the Cat 1, again over the going down the climb and going up the next Cat 1. And then there was the intermediate sprint there, but he comes over the top. Now, if you think back, I watched the stage, the Covadonga stage, Save 17 in the 2021 Tour de France. They did basically the exact same route. And up and over the Lemena, which is 7.5 out, 9.5%, there's about 58K to go. Bernal attacks. Roglic goes with them. Those two go up and over the top of the climb. They hit the final climb. Roglic drops Bernal. He puts about 120 some on the group. Sepp Kuss wins the field sprint. However, Odd Christian Eiking is in the red jersey as they're coming down the descent, and he crashes on a left-hand corner. Same exact corner this time. Wout's in the lead there. A Jayco rider in front of him crashes out. Wout hits the deck as well, hits up against the wall, and then tries to get back on the bike, and his knee is not allowing him to pedal, and he pulls out of this thing. Meanwhile, back behind, you've got Enric Mas. He tries the same exact tactic as Bernal had done, tacks on that same climb. Sepp, Roglic goes with him. Landa then tries to go free. The main riders, Roglic and these, they're not wanting to do it. Decathlon comes in the front, calms things down, goes over the top. We don't see any more crashes in there. We go into the final climb. The main guys up front, you've got Soler, you've got Frigo, you've got Riccatello, who I thought was going to possibly do this. He gets shelled out right away. Jay Vine, he's up the road as well. He ends up dropping Soler, and then Soler comes back up to the groom with Zana. And next thing you know, Soler's attacking, and then he's got Max Poole and Soler, and Zana's behind, and they're working. Next thing you know, it's just Soler going up there. Soler solos into the win, gets the win over Max Poole and Filippo Zana. Pretty impressive. He Solerism himself into this race. I was thinking multiple times he was just riding ridiculous. But he ends up getting the win out of it. So congrats to him. He said, hey, look, I don't get much chances to ride for the win on this team, and so it's been pretty rewarding. And yeah, he did, and that's what you have now. Sepp Kuss, he's in 12th place. He's looking to move up a few spots. He's got about a minute, almost 2 minutes up to Sivakov in 10th. He's got about a minute and a half to Adam Yates in 11th, and then you got him in 12th. There's Skilmos up there. There's a bunch of other good riders, and the ride Sepp looked pretty good, and then they hit the bottom of the climb. Everything is going fine. Next thing you know, Landa once again takes off, tries to make a break for it because he's got his team on the front working for him, the T-Rex team. There's reactions. There's reactions from Mas. There's reactions from Carapaz, Roglic, Sepp Kuss. They all look good. There starts to be gaps immediately forming. Gadou's there. He's able to bridge to this front group. For a while, you just have Sepp, Gadou, Carapaz, Roglic, and Mas. And then Landa's there, and they catch Landa, and then Landa gets dropped through. And then Skilmos is right on the edge, and then Ben O'Connor's right on the edge. He's already losing, and Ben O'Connor's fighting. He doesn't have Gall to help him win the high mountains. Parapente had already done a ton of work, doing everything he could for him coming up to this, controlling it on the Cat 1, making sure that your team's there on the valley coming down. And it was pretty good for everybody at this point. Sepp Kuss, I could start to notice he's looking behind him when he's about third on Carapaz's wheel. He looks behind, there's David Gadou there. Next thing you know, those are swapped places. I'm like, that is not a good sign. If you are looking to just let this guy slip in, but you don't want to cause that gap for him, but then you are gapping yourself, that's not the place to be. You're going to have some trouble. Next thing you know, we see him slipping away. Then it's scattered all throughout the mountain. Then you got Gadou, Mas makes some attacks. Landa is trying to get back up there. He gets trying to remember the guy's name. His teammate had been up the road in the break, comes, waits for him, sits up, and he starts pulling him up there. He's trying to get back up to the main group, the Roglic group. Then behind you've got Rodriguez, Sepp Kuss. They're trying to get up there. The Adam Yates are in there, and it's just spread out all over the mountain. There's some ups and downs. And if we look at this this last climb, it's really crazy because it's all pitchy here, and then you get 4 or 5 kilometers to the finish. It turns green on the level of the black is the most steep, red is next. In this green, but its green was actually close to a downhill. Then they kicked up again, and then they had this really long down. Now it was wet. It was rainy. It was wet. It wasn't a good situation to be in. And they start coming down the climb here, and there's all these little things, and it looks like it's about a minute gap. I mean, maybe 8 seconds in the virtual lead that Roglic is just out of this. But Roglic is not pushing the pace a lot. He's holding on. Carapaz is pushing. Carapaz is starting to look really good. Enric Mas is starting to look good. David Gaudu is just slinging on the back, doing what he can. But as those riders come down the hill and pitch up to the finish, Mas takes the lead over with Carapaz and Roglic right there, and immediately around the corner you see some of the riders that had been behind, which were also Sepp Kuss, and I thought they were going to be way back and behind, but it wasn't. It was Riccatello comes in, and then right behind him is Enric Mas. Riccatello had been in the break. Carapaz, Primoz Roglic, and then Skilmos comes over. They come over 3:54. 4:01, just 7 seconds behind him is Skilmos, Gaudu, Carlos Rodriguez. Landa comes in at 4:05, and it's just teeny little gaps as they pitch over there. Carlos Rodriguez 4:05 with Landa, and then Sepp Kuss just got distance. He comes in at 4:09. Now he puts on 30 seconds to 29 actually to Adam Yates. So he moves up on him, takes 30 seconds out of him. Lipowitz comes in behind at 4:16, and then O'Connor 4:52 fights his way. He was passing Sivakov, Mihailovic, who had been dropped from the break, and he was trying to get past Lipowitz as well. So he comes in at 4:52, saves his red jersey. Sivakov goes 4:59, loses a minute to Sepp Kuss. So you can see here the time won lost for the general classification. These guys are all moving up 58 seconds. That's how much time they took on Ben O'Connor. Remember that 20-second penalty? Roglic would have been in the red today, but maybe it's best he's not. Still, let's see if Decathlon could do some work in the next few days before we start to hit the horrible stuff in the mountains Friday. Now, wow, being up in the front group today. Why? He was trying to get all the KOM points. He's trying to get the sprint points, just lock everything up. As it turns out, he's locked himself out of the race completely, loses the polka dot, loses the green because he can't finish the stage. And why? Because the next few days are days that he could be winning. It seems ridiculous that he's up there in this, but when you got legs like he does, I guess you just decide that's what you do. It looks like the team to me supported Sepp much more today. He let himself down more than anything, but he only loses a little bit of time here. He gains time over, like I said, Sivakov and Adam Yates are both basically on 5:19, 5:20, and then just inside, just a minute. Outside of that is Sepp Kuss, ready to, hopefully they continue to have bad days. So the time, the top 12 is all within 6 minutes here. That's much more solidified, and then it's another 4 minutes back to the 13th place. So this top 12 is solidifying itself. But it's only 2.5 minutes up there to 8th place. I don't see Sepp getting past Skilmos. He's been riding very well. Perhaps getting inside Lipowitz to see how he rides the last bit. But I could see Sepp moving up. Got to get 1 more minute. His ride today, he stuck up with the front group, drifted back, had some trouble, and then was able to sit on wheels that just weren't the top. And then they came back to him. And I don't know that was due to Sepp's work or was due to him being able to recover a little bit on those downhills, pushing it maybe a little bit harder and being able to come back. And then the front guys were playing cat and mouse just a tad bit. They didn't want to really take it on. And I think if they had done that, if Roglic's legs were a little bit better, he would have been in the red jersey today. But as it was, he wasn't. Points jersey now, Caden Groves is he was 100 plus points behind Wout. Now the KOM jersey goes to Jay Vine. It had been close for them. Anyway, Marc Soler moves up into second place at 42, and Castrile holding in the 32. Philip Lozano at 27. The youth jersey does switch today, so we see Lipowitz dropping down 2. Skilmos moves up. Carlos Rodriguez moves up. They are 4 seconds behind each other and 41 seconds to Lipowitz. That'll be an interesting take there. And then the team UAE, they are destroying on that, at least as of today. So today we had all the jerseys change. Every single jersey changed except for the GC. Ben O'Connor holds tight here, 5 seconds lead over Roglic. 25 over Moss, Carapaz. I mean, Carapaz, Moss are riding well, but they should be worried, a little bit worried that they even get a chance to be into the top 3 on the podium at the finish here because they let him in. Now, here's tomorrow's stage. This would have been perfect for Wout. It won't be anymore. Caden Groves, if we want Alpecin, Koenig wants to control it. They have a good chance of getting a win here for them. Stage 18. So this is, let me see, Wednesday. So this is Thursday. It's got a Cat 2, a Cat 1, and then kind of goes, once again, it would have been another Wout day. I see breakaways for at least this one. And then we look into the weekend, which is horrendous. 3 days. Stage 19 up to Alto Monte Calavio. What do we have? 8.6 kilometers at 8.9%. So it's a pretty steady climb all the way to the top. But we hit a Cat 3 earlier, and this is only 173 kilometers, just not too bad. And then stage 20 might be the most difficult day on the whole race. It only ends on a Cat 1, but you hit a 3, a 3, a 2, a 1, a 2, a 1, and a 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 categorized climbs. The last one being 8 kilometers at 9%. Pretty steep up to Alto del Caracol. And no, I'm sorry, wow, we've got so many of them. The Puerto de los Tornos, okay? Pretty steady climb, but you may see a rider, break away before that on the Cat 1. It goes, 172. We've got this, I wouldn't do it because from 146 into the bottom of the climb, it's mostly downhill, but you got some other pitches stuff, and it'd be good to have teammates with you. So they're probably holding their powder all to the end here. A break may once again go, but you are still looking for the craziness. And then, this is what Roglic has in his back pocket is this time trial. I watched 2021 going through the finish, which had a similar, actually it was a little bit more up, but it wasn't much different, 33 kilometers, so actually a little bit longer, and he put a 120 something into everybody, winning that one quite handily. And I expect him to do so as well this time. Carapaz, he could time trial okay. Moss isn't horrible. He was on the top 10 that day, but a minute and a half to Roglic. So you're just not going to see anything on this last time trial unless Roglic has to do a bike change and gets penalized and crashes himself, which he did not do today. So that was fairly solid for that. So that's what we have coming up for the next few days. Look, what do I take away from this? I'm seeing, I'm starting with Sepp because he's the guy I'm a big fanboy of his, how he rode last year. Not in the same quality of riding that he did last year. There was a video the Visma put out yesterday Visma Lisa Bike put out yesterday that was just kind of a little behind the scenes thing with Sepp Kuss, and they're talking about different stages, and he's like, yeah, finally it was the other day that he feels like he's able to kind of play the game and to race a little bit. And he said, look, I felt like I had to go with them, with Roglic and them. Now the problem is every time he tries to go with them, he's one of the last, main guys going with them, 5-4 or whatever. He's up there, he's pushing it like he always used to, but something's just a little off because he's one of the first, like you saw, Gadu, Carapaz, Moss, and Roglic, and then Sepp was on their wheel, and he went with them quite easily. Gadu comes up to them. There's a gap already, and then Sepp has a hard time. And then he's like, I could have just paced myself from the bottom, but I felt, and I get it. And I think at this point in his riding, what would be best thing? Maybe it would be to come off right away and to pace himself up. Maybe he'd be able to pass some people. But he's just like, I'm in 12th place. What's the point of that riding? I know how I can ride. I'm just trying to get myself. Maybe I'll come good. And he has been coming good on these climbs. You saw that on Granada, which he went over the top of that one. That was losing a minute and a half. That was a minute and a half, almost 2 minutes that day to Yates. He would have been, and then they let Sivakov go up the road, obviously. And but he came back on that. He was only 30 seconds down on the top of that climb, and he ends up blowing it because of the descent. What do we else? I think Skilmos is going to get into the white jersey. He's been looking very good, although Carlos Rodriguez made a little bit of a comeback today. Lipowitz's main goal has to be to help Roglic, and then he does what he can, and that's where Sepp's been a lot of times. He finished, 8th in the 2021 Vuelta, as a matter of fact, doing a lot of that work for Roglic himself, and then trying to do what he can afterwards. Carapaz is coming on strong. So is Enric Mas, and it will be interesting to see if either one of those. I predict that once Ben O'Connor pops out of the red jersey, he's going to flummox his way down a bit. I could see him at 4th place and those others getting in front of him. But I'd love to see him get on to be able to finish on the podium. You know, it's one thing you see, someone gets in the red jersey and he's a dangerous rider, and sometimes they last there for a while and then they just dissipate. He's not going to be going anywhere. He's learned a lot from this, and I think he fought hard, and you can see that with the pace he had in the last kilometer and a half or so was pretty good today. Okay, Victor said liked. Tyler is live. Yes, we didn't get many live viewers today, but don't forget to like, subscribe to Stay Here so you check it out every time we go live. You go live, and let's take a look here. I don't think I'll be able to do this until tomorrow afternoon, if at all. And so maybe we won't even have one till Thursday, but be on the lookout for that. Until tomorrow, we'll see ya.